Everybody hear me in the back? Okay, well, thanks a lot for coming out. I really appreciate your presence, and I appreciate you being here. And thanks to my great partner here, Peyton, for volunteering to, help assist in this movement that I'm doing today. And the painting behind me is a painting called King County. And I will get into all of this. This presentation is going to go very smooth. It's somewhat structured and loose at the same time. And the slide that I was just showing before is a picture of my family. You can switch it to the next slide. This is my family. I have a very big family from Arizona and Alaska. And I'll get into that. But I love them very much, and some of them are here today. And you can just go back, Peyton, to the King County, please. And hello, my name is Andrew Morrison, and I'd like to thank everybody for being here, and I'd like to thank you for giving me your undivided attention, and by you extending me this courtesy, I am going to give you my undivided attention. I'd like to thank David Conrad, the EMP, the Experience Music Project, everybody that helped make this happen, all of my friends, all of my family, my wonderful lady friend Brandy here, and everybody that has believed in me throughout my whole life and throughout my whole career and helped me get to this point. I feel very honored to be here in the EMP. I saw them build this, over a decade ago. It was a very powerful experience. So for me now to be giving a talk here, it's really sentimental, and it means that my life is going in the direction that I intended it to. And as I speak today, I think of Jimi Hendrix and Kurt Cobain and Nirvana and Bruce Lee and Russell Wilson and all of the many great people who have transformed this town that I grew up in and many of us call home into a world-class city. And to start it all off, I'd like to tell you that I love Seattle wholeheartedly, and I extend a great big congratulations to the Seattle Seahawks, the world champions. I'm a very big NFL fan, and for me, this was a dream come true. I spent years upon years upon years upon years upon years in the rain, losing all hope, brokenhearted, at times crying, because I'm such a football fan, and I used to play football, and the minute I saw Russell Wilson, I knew there was something special about him. Before everybody knew his name, when he got drafted, when no one knew, what he was about, I saw it. In the first game he played, I could just see that special passion that he had within him, and I knew it was going to happen. I knew he was going to take our city and our football team to the top, and he did. And so I created this painting. It's called King County. I was born here in Seattle, Washington, in King County, and it's a commemoration of the Super Bowl victory. There's a picture of the Kingdome fans with the 12th man, on their phone, and Russell Wilson and the Lombardi Trophy and the Hawkeye, and so that's my gift to the city of Seattle and the people that believe in the Seahawks. And I honor tradition, history, and heritage. My heritage, go to the next one. My heritage is Native American, Indian, First Nations, First People, Indigenous, Red Man, Red Skin, Apache, and Haida, and the human tribe. I believe in the human spirit of humanity, that everybody walks the same earth as me, and people sink to the earth as I do. And I believe that, we all breathe the same air, and I honor other living souls that drink the same water as I do. I have a very rooted principle in humanity and treating people that walk the same earth as me in a way of equality. And man did not weave the web of life. He is merely a strand in it. And what he does to the web, he does to himself. Chief Seattle. I was named after the disciple Andrew from the Bible. My mother, who is in attendance here today, Alesta Morrison, gifted me that name as a child. She handpicked it for me and said, that's what my son's going to be. And thank you for taking the time to do that, Mother. I give all the praise and glory of my life and my career to the Almighty Heavenly Father, and daily I pray to Him and I ask of Him to whisper to all of you that I only live to see you again. I have a very giving personality and a very giving heart within my artwork, and that's my sole purpose in life. In Apache, Gossion, which is my mother's maiden name, means getting smart. And I come from Alaska, from the Morrison family, from the little town called Heidelberg. It's a very small town in southeast Alaska. This is just some of my family. My grandmother passed away, Auntie Louise, last year, and this was some of my family that came to wish her well as she went to heaven to watch over us. So, you know, I constantly have these photos and have these people revolving in my life. And I was born into some of the biggest families in the whole United States. I can begin to talk about my cousins and uncles and aunties and nephews and sons and daughters and extended cousins and extended uncles and grandfathers brothers and brothers and brothers, and how big my clan is from Heidelberg, Alaska. The town, which is of roughly 500 people, about half of that town or more is directly related to myself and coming from the Morrison family. And that's just from my Haida side. And my mother, who is Apache Indian from the San Carlos Reservation, is from a family that I would even take a guesstimate in saying that it's even larger, because my mother's reservation, where she is from, the San Carlos Apache Reservation, is one of the largest reservations in the whole United States. And my mother had something to the nature of 8 or 9 or 10 siblings, and every one of those siblings had 8 or 9, 10 children, and it keep extending and extending and extending all the way to me. So I'm very privileged and honored to be from such a loving community and, you know, loving families. Our families reside from the northern tip of Alaska to the southern tip of Louisiana. My Haida people, who are the Haida Gwaii, originated off the coast of British Columbia. Much of my family migrated to Seattle in the 1940s looking for work, and to this day, Seattle is our home. I spent much time in Heidelberg as a child and as a grown man, and I would encourage you that if you've never been to Heidelberg, I would really encourage you to go. It's a beautiful place. It's a very small town. It's the exact opposite of Seattle. Anything you could imagine about Seattle is a night and day difference when you go to Heidelberg. It's basically like going to a different country. You do have to take a plane there. You do have to take 2 ferries and drive an hour straight into the woods to get to this isolated village that my father is from. And needless to say, if you like outdoor activity and you like salmon, if you like deer, if you like anything of that nature, it's all there. I've never seen more fish than I've seen in Heidelberg. I've never seen more deer than I've seen in Heidelberg. I've never seen bigger halibut in Heidelberg. And, you know, and so I really appreciate, you know, my heritage from Alaska. And I have several names. One of my names is Sta, which is my Haida name. Sta is short for One Sta. One Sta was my grandfather's name. As a child, my family began calling me Sta. And to this day, the most intimate, closest friends I have on this earth in front of God call me Sta. And it really makes me feel good when someone addresses me as Sta. It means that you have confidence in me, that you have a certain amount of love towards me and see me in a certain light. A very small percentage of people even know that. And I am extending that grace to all of you as a friendship. All of you can address me as Sta. Again, my mother is sitting here in attendance. She is an Apache woman. She is a fluent Apache speaker. She barely spoke English until the point she was 18 years old when she was shipped to Los Angeles to go work as a secretary in downtown LA. And so, you know, during my whole entire life, she spoke Apache to me, and she taught me Apache, and she told all of us Apache, and she speaks Apache to all of my nephews and nieces here. And hi he shima bigat we done hi he in da ni he ha o was still continue none done it that ben and dinner he hi he kun. That is, you know, to my mother and all of you. My Apache name is Nandana Ditha. So I have several names. You can call me any one. Feel, you know, whatever you are inclined to do. Nandana Ditha is a name that was given to me by my grandmother, my mother's next one. Yeah, we can go. Next one? Yeah. This name was given to me by my mother's mom when I was born here in Seattle back in 1981. My mother took me and brought me all the way back to Arizona, and while my grandmother was still alive, put me in my grandmother's arm, and my grandmother gave me the name Nandanadithe on her deathbed before she went to heaven, and then she's watching over me now. So I feel very honored that my mother instilled that heritage within me. And to this day, my mother calls me Nandanadithe, or Nantan. And if you actually watch the movie Geronimo starring Wes Studi, everybody that's Indian, Native American, refers to Geronimo, Wes Studi, as Nantan. Or the general that is fighting for the cavalry, they call them Nantan. It's a very strong name. It's a way of addressing someone like sir, or a certain amount of respect. So, you know, keep that in mind if you do watch that movie. And I spent much time in San Carlos, Arizona as a child and as a grown man. My mother made it very clear and apparent to me that it was important for me, even though I grew up here in Seattle, to spend a lot of time down there, to learn the customs, to learn the ways, to meet all of my family and friends. And great. And this is some of my family from Arizona. We come from a crown dancing culture. Way up in the very top is my grandmother. I believe that's my brother James she's holding. And this is some of my family from Arizona. I love them very much. And if you have never been to San Carlos, Arizona, to the Apache Reservation, or to Bylis, Arizona, or Peridot, Arizona, or White River, or the White Mountain Apache Reservation in Arizona, and you really are searching for something, you want to find yourself, you want to get out of the city, I would encourage you to go down there and spend some time, a week at least, and remove yourself from the modern luxuries of this town called Seattle, and go back and spend some time with these Apache people that live in the desert, that have been there since the beginning of time. They still speak their Apache language, is the exact opposite of Seattle. The sun shines 365 days a year in Bylis, where my mother's from, and the Apache people give praise to the sun. It's a very strong spiritual connection that the people have down there, and I would encourage you to go down there. And let's go to the next one, Peyton. And last but not least is my other name, Ziploc. Again, feel inclined to call me anyone. My most intimate friends call me Ziploc. It just never ends. It goes deeper and deeper. But Ziploc is my name because I keep it fresh, coming back to our original story of my start as a graffiti artist here in Seattle to becoming a national fine artist, marketing my artwork all over the country, and having a great amount of success, which, you know, the Creator above has blessed me and all my friends and family that have believed in me over the years. And I would say Ziploc is as a graffiti writer, a street graffiti writer, it's a very intricate culture, and it's a subculture within a culture of hip-hop and within the art world. And it's very interesting how it formed and how it developed in the night and how it was eventually somewhat accepted in mainstream society to this day. And many people ask me, why Ziploc? How did you get the name Ziploc? Or why Zip? Or it's a daily question, you know. And I always tell people this simple story so you know how I got my name. I was a young teenager searching for a name. And as a graffiti writer, your name is your most important thing. It defines you, it drives you, it pushes you. It's how people approach you. There's a very intense street etiquette in the graffiti world that I could probably talk for an hour or two about strict protocols of how to approach people and crews in different cities and different parts of town. And starting with all of that, it's actually a somewhat of a difficult genre even to survive in. And by the grace of the graffiti gods, I was able to make a career out of it. And so I got the name Ziploc because I was a young teenager and I was searching for a name. I couldn't figure out what name it was, and I was watching TV, and a commercial came on the TV, and it was a Ziploc bag commercial, and there was a very, you know, wild actor on the TV, and he was obsessively compulsing vegetables, and he was obsessively compulsively zipping up bread and food and leftovers, and he kept saying, Ziploc keeps it fresh, Ziploc keeps it fresh, Ziploc keeps it fresh. It was a really intense commercial, and it just hit me. Boom, I got hit. And I said, that's what I do. I keep it fresh. My style is fresh. I am Ziploc. I am Ziploc as a 12-year-old kid, and it just hit me. And to this day, I live up to my name. My name hasn't changed once. And everything I do, I strive to live up to that name by keeping it fresh with my artwork, by keeping it fresh with my attitude, by keeping it fresh with the way I dress, by keeping it fresh with my hand styles, by keeping it fresh in the shoes I wear, to everything I do. Because again, in the street graffiti culture, it's a very intricate culture where you are harshly judged and pursued by your peers. And it's a very fun culture that I enjoy. And prior to this speaking engagement, I was asked a series of questions, and periodically I'll refer back to these questions. One question that I was asked is, how do you define creativity and apply it in your career? Here's my answer to all of you. How do I define creativity? My definition of creativity to me is always being free in the most rudimentary sense of the word. Free to speak, free to love, free to sleep, free to laugh, free to walk, free to think, free to refrain, free to sit, free to run, free to eat, free to see, free to hear, free to dance, free to work, free to dream, free to feel, and free to break through any rudimentary man-made prohibitions that bear directly down upon the human spirit. And yes, I am a free spirit. There is freedom in my way. I find clarity by living a blameless life. These are principles that I instilled within myself, from my career to writing graffiti to just simply standing on the side of the street to working with my brother-in-law downtown. For years, I worked with him as a security guard at some of the craziest clubs in Seattle, keeping people safe. Thank you, Michael. And so I began writing graffiti at the age of 10, and I started defining my style. And my father was a house painter when I was growing up. He had a contract painting business, and my whole life, all over Western Washington, he would take me and all my siblings, and we would paint buildings, commercial buildings, all over Washington. And one time, I was downtown, we were painting a building, and I was 10 or 11 years old, and I saw graffiti on the wall. And I actually saw there was young men out there spraying graffiti. And again, it hit me like a ton of bricks. It was very life-changing. I saw it. I recognized what was happening. I really didn't even understand it, but I knew that's what I wanted to do because I was always artistically inclined. And From that point on, I began writing graffiti and started tagging my names around the city, primarily on the north end and in Everett. And my tag got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and better and better. And my tags turned into cartoons because I was a cartoonist, and I still am, which people don't know. And then one night I did a very cool cartoon, and I decided, well, if I can do this cartoon, let me see if I can actually paint a face on the wall. Let's go to the next slide. And I said, let me see if I can get detail-oriented in this. And so I started doing this in the blackest of night. It was just pouring down rain, 15 years old, cold in the dead of winter. And I was out there by myself, going as quick and as fast as I can, because as a graffiti artist, your number one task is speed. Everything else is out the window. When you're out there, speed is your best friend. So that's how I learned to paint as quick and as fast as you can, just wildly unorganized. And I painted my first face, and it looked similar to this. This is a 25-foot mural on Indian Heritage School, but it was very similar to this. And it made sense to me in the darkness of that night. You know, the Creator touched me, and as a young man, it moved me very deeply. And by the time I was 18, I applied to actually a dozen colleges throughout the country to art schools, and I got into all 12 and received scholarships to all of them. And I ended up going to the Rhode Island School of Design in Providence, Rhode Island, and I studied with some of the most elite artists I've ever met to this day, the most cutting-edge people that I might ever meet. You know, I still stay in touch with some of them, and I studied every facet and genre of artwork, from dance to video to photography. And one thing that I like to tell people is that I excelled tremendously in science fiction fantasy. And that's one thing that the general public doesn't know because I don't do it. But it was something about science fiction fantasy really moved me. And I got straight A's in the class. And it was probably one of the best classes I've ever taken in my life. And I always tell myself that one day I will go back to science fiction fantasy and go back to those roots. And question number 2, where do you find your best creative inspiration? Where do I find my best creative inspiration? This is my answer to you. In the midst of a single breath, where perversity cannot be held, this is where I find my greatest creative inspiration. That's what I found out about myself after doing this for so long. That within a single breath, within a single movement, when anxiety can't bear on me, when fear can't press upon me, when hunger can't subdue me, when fatigue can't put me to sleep, when lights are turning off, when there's no gas in the car, within that single breath of just purity is when I found out that it's my greatest strength as far as creating and even survival. So when you get to know me and you see me paint, it's a very intense siege of energy that just does not stop, no matter what. And I just go, and I strive to stay within that breath before fear, anxiety, pain, sweat, tears, hunger, fatigue, any of that nature can either slow me down, hold me up, or stop me. And coming to the end of my presentation, let's go to the next one, bud. One more. Is the great murals of Indian heritage. I'm sure a lot of you have seen these murals. I had a very tumultuous year last year, probably the greatest test of stamina that I've had to endure, the greatest test of integrity that I've had to witness, the greatest test of discipline that I have had to manifest within my body and my spirit. These walls shall not fall, is what I said to every single last person I saw the whole last year. I painted these murals at the Indian Heritage School in North Seattle, and over a year ago a proposition was passed to demolish this school, and there was a controversy up in the air about the demolition of the school. We can go to the next one, Peyton. And the murals that I painted on the wall. And so for 1 year straight, I began campaigning, and I told everybody I saw that these walls shall not fall. I said it is a desecration to the Native American people. It's sacrilegious and it's blasphemy to destroy this image of Chief Joseph. And on this front page article that changed my life forever, probably the most intense experience I've ever gone through, pushed me into outer space with my career and my test of manhood and what I could and couldn't endure. And after a year of campaigning, we can go to the next one, and finding understanding and doing everything I can to voice my opinion and find kindness in people and find a forgiving spirit within people and within myself, the Seattle Public Schools agreed that, yes, you're right, Andrew. We're going to hire you. You're going to be an employee. You're going to work with us and John Paul Jones, the architect, and you and John Paul are going to preserve the murals at Indian Heritage in their original form and rebuild them into the new schools at Wilson Pacific. Let's go to the next one. So for the last year, since last summer, I have been hired by Seattle Public Schools and John Paul Jones, the architect. And if you don't know who John Paul Jones is, he's a wonderful man. He is the head architect of the National Museum of the American Indian in Washington, D.C. He designed the whole thing. I'm working directly with him and Justine Kim. She's in the audience, and a number of Seattle Public School employees to actually use modern technology and modern engineering to cut out the bricks of these walls, all 8 murals, stabilize them, move them into the new schools, restructure them, put backing behind them, protect them, and instill them into the new 21st century schools. So, all of the hard work paid off, and I thank the Seattle Public Schools and John Paul and all of you and everybody that has followed my career and supports me to make this wonderful thing happen. And so, by the grace of God, good guys do finish first. And I'm living proof to stick to your guns no matter what. Nice guys do win. All you men believe that. All of you guys. Okay, and I will leave. Let's see if there's one more slide. This is my last question that I'm going to leave with everybody. This is the last question that was posed to me. What's the one creative advice or tip you wish you had known as a young person? This is my answer to all of you. I wish it had been made crystal clear to me by a living human being that man, the living creature, is perplexed by Mother Nature's simplicity. And Mother Nature's simplest signs show us that anything is possible. Any mountain can be climbed, any wall can be shattered, any amount of success could easily be achieved, any wound will heal, any dream will manifest, any thought can move continents, any road can be traveled, any conflict can be avoided, any war can cease, any picture can be painted, any gallery can be built, any team can win, any fortune can be obtained, any family can last, and any height of heaven can be reached. And that's my guarantee to you. Thank you very much for coming to my presentation. I appreciate your attention. Thank you, Peyton. We'll put it on in a second. Let's see what he has to say.
So we've got about 5 minutes or so for questions. Let's just jump right into it. Does anybody have any questions for Andrew?
Yes.
How long would it take you? You said speed was like.
Yes.
How long would it take you to, let's say, if you wanted one of those faces?
That's a good question. The face on the right, which is a 25 by 25 foot painting of Chief Sitting Bull, and Chief Geronimo on the right are both 25 by 25 feet, totaling 25 feet in height by 50 feet in length. Myself, with the help of 2 other young men, were able to paint both faces in 12 hours exactly, We started last summer at 7:30 a.m. and finished at 7:30 p.m. And the speed of myself being able to calculate thoughts and process pros and cons as quick as I can and try to process my energy and fight fatigue and work with 2 other people was years in the making for me to be able to paint that fast. I tell people that if I approached this same project 10 years ago or 12 years ago when I first started the murals back in 2001, a painting of that magnitude, 25 by 25 feet of Chief Sitting Bull, might have taken me a week or a month. I can begin to tell you how much energy it consumes to paint in that magnitude. It's an overwhelming sense of climbing a Mount Everest when you stand before the wall and your brushstrokes are only this small and you're working in a manner like you're almost climbing and the puzzle's changing as you go. And so it took me years to be able to paint like that and paint that fast, and primarily that I started so young at 10, 11, 12 years old, you know. You know, these particular murals, it's a mixture. Some of them I started with sketching. Some of them are very choreographed in my approach to the wall. And then there has been times like these particular murals where time constraints, money constraints, and man-hour constraints actually forced me to just, these 2 murals here, I just showed up at the wall and just jumped into it with, you know, my eyes wide shut and just stage dived into it and just literally had 2 spray cans in both hands and had people handing me stuff and jumping up and down and someone working the lift and going up and down and someone handing me water and someone playing music and someone answering my cell phone and just doing, it's a madness, a method that, you know, is somewhat developed over the years. Yeah. You know, that's a good question. My next conquest is, I have a few next conquests, but one somewhat immediate task that I have is I'm working on publishing a book with a author, and I've been working on it for a year. And so I just had a meeting with her last week, and we're at the final stage of producing it, about 95% done. And it's going to be very innovative and cool about myself and my creation process. And so that's going to be finished and available on my website. And then I also plan to actually get back into my comic book roots and storytelling of illustration. And I'd actually like to start illustrating the story of the Great Walls of Indian Heritage and how they began and how I started writing as a teenager and how it grew into a career, you know. Yes.
You mentioned earlier in your talk that you, oh my gosh, I'm blanking out, that you're a very generous artistic spirit.
Yeah.
But then you also mentioned later that you had great commercial success. Do you feel like it was mostly luck and grace that led you to that, or were there some strategic things?
There was a certain amount of grace in it as far as me being calm and me being able to talk to people and process thoughts, good and bad. But there was an extreme amount of determination and drive where I have literally traveled the whole country and met thousands upon thousands upon thousands of people, good and bad, and religiously passed out business cards and religiously made phone calls and religiously sent out emails and religiously knocked on doors and, you know, and was very adamant in where I saw my career going as far as the country and the greater world, seeing my vision as a painter in the images. But amongst all of that, I always strive to do it with grace so that I didn't push myself on people or push myself into, you know, organizations. I always felt that I wanted to give people the choice of, you know, here's this young man, he's got great work, cool, you know, but amongst that, it's hours upon hours of just literally getting out there block to block and city to city and getting turned down time and time again until finally I started breaking through, to the other side and really discovered, some of my truest paths in life, Yes.
Is there a goal or a project that you have in mind where you feel like once this is done, that your contribution to your heritage?
The immediate project and the task at hand is working with Jean-Paul Jones, the architect, Seattle Public Schools, and Malem Architectural Firm over the next 2 years to successfully rebuild these murals into the new school. And as this is happening, I'm discovering more of myself and basically my destiny unfolding. And I can begin to explain to you in words the amount of knowledge I am gaining from Jean-Paul Jones. I would encourage you to Google his name and his company. He is the head architect of the National Museum of the American Indian in Washington, D.C. And now that I've been working with him for a year, it's his professionalism is profound. It's compelling. It's moving. It's like working with Steven Spielberg or working with someone as gracious as Michael Jackson or being on the same basketball team as Michael Jordan. And so I feel very privileged to be, in this contract over the next 2 years to successfully rebuild these murals into the school. And I believe that once this project is completed over the next year and a half, that will really solidify a place in my heart of giving back to the community and the Native community. Yeah.
One more question.
Yeah. Okay. Yes.
As a graffiti artist, have you had any run-ins with the law, and how has that affected your spirit? Has it changed the way that you approach it?
It has. I've been arrested 4 times for writing graffiti. And I always tell, I don't tell young men and young teenagers to do it. And I show them what I'm doing. And I tell young men and even young women now, what's happening now is when I was growing up in the 1990s, it was strictly a male culture, hands down. The whole thought of having young women around was just ludicrous. But what's happening now in the 2000s and 2014 is actually there's a balance where there's like a equivalent of women in the graffiti game as men. And I think it's very cool. And what I don't do illegal graffiti anymore. And what I tell young men and women is that you are going to get arrested and you are going to get persecuted to the fullest extent because I was. And I've known the best of the best. I've met the best graffiti writers in Seattle, in Boston, in New York City, in Rhode Island, in upstate New York, in Philadelphia, in L.A., Phoenix. Every last one of them has always been arrested and persecuted to the fullest extent of the law. And in 2014, the laws are actually even tighter than they were 10 years ago and even tighter than they were in the 1990s when I first started doing illegal graffiti. And it really sharpened me up. It really gave me a backbone real quick. And, when I was 21 years old, I got arrested in the middle of the night in Roxbury, Massachusetts. It's probably one of the roughest neighborhoods I've ever been in this whole country. And I had to spend some time in jail, and it was a real life-changing experience. And after that time, I did decide to quit writing illegal graffiti because I realized that now that I was getting older, that these consequences are getting more severe. And so, but it really did give me a sharp sense of discipline and what boundaries I can and can't go through. And I don't regret any of it, and it made me who I am. One more question for my sister.
Do you feel like you represent natives in Seattle by having this and these murals so large and to the public? Because I don't talk too much about that, but I just feel like you represent me. But do you feel like you represent with your murals
I do. I feel like I represent the Native American people, not only here in Washington State, Chief Seattle, Chief Joseph, Geronimo, and Sitting Bull, but Native American people in all 4 directions across the whole country. That's why the chiefs painted are from Seattle, from Idaho, from Arizona, from Montana, from South Dakota, from Alaska, from Texas, from Oklahoma. Every one of the images, tribes representing across the whole country, you know, giving off a feeling of inclusiveness. And for me to paint these images, I have to have a lot of respect towards Native American people. I've been asked to go out to the Nez Perce tribe, who is Chief Joseph is a descendant from, in the Coeur d'Alene tribe, and I've been out there extensively. And when I go out there, I basically have a spirit of humility and humbleness, and basically bowing down to them, you know, because I feel that, you know, if they let me paint these images, that I'm going to show them a certain amount of respect. And the same with the Duwamish and the Suquamish and any other tribes that I've painted. And deeper than that, I believe that these murals not only represent Native American history, but the United States of America history, because this is the first people and the indigenous people of this land. And deeper than that, I believe that these murals represent the human spirit, you know, the human tribe, that all people walk on the same earth and breathe the same air. So there's a real deep sense of history and heritage that just goes deeper and deeper into why I do create. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Peyton. I appreciate it.